Bill, in your opinion, can you briefly tell me what are the real keys to angling success with an artificial bait? Well, to me, there are 4 real keys to catching any kind of fish on an artificial offering. They're what I call the 4 rights. Put the right lure in the right place at the right depth with the right retrieve, and even then, you're not going to be successful every time. But you can bet your favorite bird dog you'll be well on your way to catching more fish than the angler who doesn't consider the 4 rights every time he makes a cast. Naturally, there are going to be the other things to consider, like the size, color, and the action of your lure that you're using, time of year, water clarity, water temperature, and so forth. But of all the things considered, nothing is more important to catching fish than the right lure, the right place, the right depth, and the right retrieve. Today, finesse anglers have a wide choice of lure sizes appropriate to the needs of small reels and light lines. Many are simple miniature versions of larger lures familiar to anglers, which measure well under 2 inches and weigh from less than 1/4 of an ounce down to 1/8 of an ounce. All of this eye-catching gear, however, is useless until the angler develops the skills that finesse fishing demands. Whoa. Y'all hooked up there. Let's see what we can do about this. Okay. Open up. I'll try to help you out here. Well, you just got yourself in a heck of a mess, didn't you? Huh? What about wind? I despise wind. Well, I shouldn't really say that. Wind, you know, a little wind is okay. A lot of wind, well, it depends. Times it'll drive you absolutely crazy. And other times, well, it does have advantages, and here are some. Wind restricts light penetration, it oxygenates the water, it creates a clarity edge, it changes the water temperature, it creates a current, it drifts plankton, it repositions fish, it dislodges food particles. Yep, there are advantages, but too much, well, it can be a nightmare. What I'm using, I'm using a medium heavy spinning rod with Stren's Braid 30-pound test low vis green, which has got about a 8-pound mono diameter. The little bait that we're using today is a dandy. It's Rebel's Trackdown Minnow. It has national listings at most retail outlets across the country. It's 3.5 inches long. It's a little sinking minnow. It features 2 number 6 treble hooks. It's an awesome lure to figure out depths where the fish are biting. You can count it down, and when you throw it, it sinks just about a foot per second on 6 to 8-pound test line. That's monofilament. On this unit, I've got traditional sonar over on the left part of the screen, and on the other part of the screen, I've got it now on Panoptix, where I'm shooting right down the ledge of this 4-foot contour. There we go. Pretty fair fish right there. Whoa. Whoa. He's all hooked up there in the face. All right, I'm going to slide you up here, and I'm not going to put my hands on your bottom lip. The angler, not the equipment, is paramount when tangling with a bass, raising cane, at the end of a delicate line on a lure with tiny hooks. You don't simply reel in a fish on light tackle. You learn the true definition of the phrase, playing the fish. You don't horse a fish. The victory is gained by capitalizing on the reel's smooth drag and the rod's flexibility to play the prey down. Nice little fish. See you around there, dude. Always let the rod and reel do the work in fighting a bass. By pumping and reeling, the rod will bend and flex and will tire the fish. Give slack line if the hook fish jumps, especially if it's a large bass on very light line. If you don't lower the rod tip and give slack when the big fish jumps, it could fall on the tight line and either break the line or pull out the hooks. As you fight the fish close to the boat, they'll normally spook and make a last-ditch run, so be ready for this. If the fish makes a final strong charge, let him go. It'll normally only run a short distance, so be ready. There's one behind it right there. He got it. I love to see him do that. He ran up there and he looked at it and he said, "Well, do I want that bait or not?" And he stopped, and I stopped the bait, and he just sat there, and as soon as I twitched it, he shot back around it and he just smacked the fire out of it. Whoa, way. Oh, ho, ho. Let's don't go crazy. Let's don't go crazy. Okay, I got one here about presentation. You know, when bass aren't responding to a bottom bumping presentation, like say with a jig, a worm, a lizard, grub, or a tube bait, is there any technique you use to trigger a strike? Well, you bet there is. When you try to impart too much action to your lure with the rod tip, well, that can be a turnoff. Instead of jerking the rod tip repeatedly and making the lure dance like a teenager at a sock hop, try to hold the rod steady at the 10 o'clock position and use the reel handle to move the lure. Naturally, if the lure makes contact with cover, you need to kind of flip the rod tip gently to help the bait over and through the cover. I've seen this presentation work more times than I can count, especially when bass are in a non-aggressive state. Try it. You might be pleasantly surprised. All right, I gotta come back here. And all right, jump. All right, say a little bit better than that. My goodness. Speaking of drag systems a minute ago, let me tell you a mistake many fishermen make when using spinning reels. When fishing open water areas, notice I said open water areas. Your drag system should be set at about 1/3 of the line test breaking strength. Once a fish is hooked and begins to pull line from the reel, the mistake many anglers make is to reel line at the same time. When this happens, you create line twist. Example, if you're using a reel with a 5.3 to gear ratio, like we are, and the fish is pulling the drag, and you make one complete revolution of the reel handle, what you've done, you've put 5 twists in your line. 3 complete turns, and you've got approximately 15 twists, which will cause casting problems and weaken your line. Let the fish pull the drag. When the drag stops, begin reeling. If you want to slow him down, apply a small amount of pressure to the spool with the index finger. This will create more pressure on the fish and slow him down. Oh, got a goodie right there. Look at him pull it. Oh, boy. Another important part of this game is to use premium grade line. Although there's some obvious disadvantages in using 6 to 8 pound tests, today's line manufacturers, as well as the rod and reel manufacturers, have refined their products into fine quality for the sporting angler. The lines have better knot strength, better abrasion resistance, better visibility, and smaller diameters. The rods are designed to be more forgiving of the angler's mistakes, while the drag systems of today are smoother and much more reliable than earlier models. Like all forms of fishing, especially when using this equipment, it's critical that you concentrate on every little detail, such as tying good knots, retying often, using sharp hooks, changing your line regularly, and keeping your tackle in good shape. There's some pliers. I'm smart. I got pliers everywhere. I got them everywhere, boy, everywhere. I got pliers everywhere. That long slank. Toodaloo. Yes, sir.